Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021, and we're going to get started here with our pre-market analysis on the S&P 500 futures market. Just to review yesterday, remember it was somewhat of a mixed bag, and we did have maybe a little bit more weight for the bears, and we said to keep in the context that even though we have all the bearish signals from the highs from Friday, the bulls always seem to jump in and continue to push, and that's exactly what happened pretty much right out of the open. So right out of the open, we got a nice aggressive. We had a few buy or long calls on the push. I personally got in pretty quickly on one of the first pullbacks that we kind of talked about in the trade room while things were going live there. Called the first pullback. I took it live myself and rode this sucker up a little bit. Of course, it went and pushed much further than where I exited the trade, but went all the way up to 47.40, and then got this really aggressive sell-off that brought us right back in. Thanks to Steve for bringing this up. Basically, filled the gap back to the close from Friday. So nice little fill of that gap, and then basically held that to the tick. Got this attempt to push back up to test the all-time high, and then another very aggressive failure at the end of the day. So that brings us into this morning. We have continued to trend a little bit lower here and found a little bit of support, interestingly enough, right around just below the 61.8 of the whole push up from the low at 46.25. As you can see, let me see if I can redraw this. This leg that we're looking at now has to be redrawn, and now we're, again, like I said, around 61 is probably more like a 75% retracement from the pullback where we bounced from 46.25 back on November 10th, it looks like. So that bounce out and this whole leg up, we've retraced about 75% of the leg, and look at where we're bouncing right now, right off of all these previous resistances that we got back on November 12th here. So holding this area again would be important for the bulls. So let's go ahead and jump to our ultra high time frames and start looking at what the charts have to say this morning. Our quarterly and our monthly really don't have anything new to add. Quarterly still looks strong with no signs of exhaustion. Monthly, what I'm noticing here, it's kind of interesting. The back end of this trend line that we were talking about happens to be right there around 47.40, and that's exactly where the market pushed to yesterday and failed, pretty aggressively failed off of that. So we're going to want to watch that. Remember, this candle here on the monthly is going to officially close in just a few more days. So when this closes, the fact that we pushed right into the back end of the trend line and failed is kind of an interesting observation here. So let's see what is going on. Our weekly is pretty wonky up here. We had the bearish signal from 47.1175. Did get that, what did we say, 75 to 90 point pullback, and then attempted to continue to push here. And as you can see, it's, I don't know, it's a little wonky as far as the RVI goes. Definitely looks like there's some trouble up here, right? From like a candlestick perspective, have these kind of pretty ambivalent looking bars here for the last 2 days, and now today's bar, if it was to have closed the way it looks right now, looking also pretty ambivalent, but plenty of time for that bar to actually develop and change, but looking a little wonky and ambivalent from the weekly perspective up in this area right now. And then our daily, remember we talked about the bearish signal from the previous daily bar. While it looks like we pushed just a little bit higher here, but still we're holding that bearish divergence, right? So right now, again, assuming that this new daily candle here closes and the RVI closes similar to the way it looks here, we will have an official bearish signal from the all-time high here on the daily, which again was similar to what we saw yesterday. So pretty bearish looking on the daily. Weekly also showing potential bearishness. Monthly showing that potential bearishness. And again, like I said, we continue to see this kind of stuff, but then the bulls just seem to rush in and continue to inch higher and higher. So for whatever it's worth, pretty much every high time frame except for the quarterly, which is kind of our top time frame there, pretty much all these ultra high time frames are showing bearish clues right now. I'll call them clues. We have bearish clues up here on all the high time frames. We get down to our 4 hour. It also essentially has an agreement from the high from yesterday. Again, it's somewhat of a subsequent bar type argument, but you can't argue that there's not divergence here. We pushed much higher in price. The RVI pushed lower here. So bearish from the highs. And then I think there's a decent argument from the low that we made in the overnight session for a bullish divergence. Again, not a nice local bullish divergence, but we do have that case from back when we were lower in price. And you can see that price pushed higher, RVI has pushed lower from there. And again, like I said, if the RVI itself had some peaks that came down and did stuff like this and kind of blocked the straight line that we just drew from the lows over here to the lows over here, then I wouldn't be drawing that. But because there's nothing blocking that pathway, I think that you could make an argument, so I'm still going to leave that there. So we've got that on the 4 hour. Another thing to look at, let me see here. Looking at the leg that we drew a while ago and seeing how we pulled back to the 50% and pushed higher, I'm just noticing the 27 extension was 47.60 here. We pushed to 40 and failed. Maybe we have a little bit higher to go on that. I think that's all I really have here on the 4 hour. I think the hourly is where we have the other fib. Okay, there we go. So looking to the hourly here. So interesting thing about the hourly is from the previous daily high, from the previous daily low, from the overnight low, and from basically all the price action since about 6 a.m. Yesterday, there really hasn't been any divergence type of setups. So again, from about the open yesterday till now, there are no divergences. There was this one little subsequent bar thing just around when the market failed there at the end of the day, but nothing off the lows, nothing off the highs, nothing off of these intermediate highs that we see in here. So 60-minute really not telling us much. However, if we just look to the leg, again, want to point out that we made this push to the high from Monday or from Friday up into that 2350. We pulled back on Friday and we bounced at the 38% retracement of this push up from 46.25 quarter, right? So we pulled back, bounced at the 38 and went ahead and started pushing higher. Now the extension of this leg, I believe we said was up around 50, 60 up there. So the 50 here, we came to 40 and failed. Now we have to redraw the fib to look at the whole leg. And like I said back on one of the higher time frames, we've essentially come down to just about 75% of this leg. And again, we said earlier, right off of this previous resistances that we got back around November 11th, November 12th there. So bouncing right there makes a lot of sense from this previous structure in the market. But again, from divergent perspective over in here, there's practically no information to glean from the charts over here. So 60-minute not really telling us much. And then if we go down to our intermediate time frames here and take a look, we've got our 30-minute here, which really, going back, there's really nothing from all the way back there. It's too far away. But we do have maybe some bearish signals off of the highs that we're making right now. And I think I just did that thing where I just deleted something and I don't know how that happened because I literally just kind of touched the screen and all of a sudden a bunch of stuff just got deleted. But we have the bearish situation right there. And then from the previous daily high, no bearish argument up there either. So it's kind of interesting that our 60-minute and our 30-minute charts here are not necessarily giving us any information from the highs or the lows. So that's not necessarily helping out our case this morning. We do have right now a buildup of some bearish signals from the current high that we made. Now it's not it's not the overnight high. The overnight high was up here at, let me get the number, 88.75, I believe. So right around 80, well, did I get that right? High 88.75. It looks like it's 89, 88.75. So when we made the overnight high at 89, we're seeing bearish signals right around 82 here. So I will go ahead and mark this on my chart. I do have a bearish signal there and right here. So we'll watch that for now. And I guess that one as well. So all three of them, all these tests of the highs right here do have bearish signals. Now keep in mind, this is only something we see on the 30-minute. It's only one time frame, and the potential to break through and continue to push is very, very possible there. I guess we should look just real quickly here at the retracement of this push down, and we are sitting just below the 38. Notice that the 61.8 retracement of the whole push down brings us to 50% of the previous day. So that level will probably be relevant this morning. And then our 10-minute going down here also has an agreement with the bearish signals from these highs here that we just made around 81, 82. From the overnight low, not too wild in calling a divergence from there. And from the previous daily high, which is our all-time high, we actually don't really have the strongest bearish divergence up there. So kind of interesting situation we have this morning. So might as well just kind of review everything for you, and we'll get kind of an idea of what we want to do here. Pretty much our ultra high time frames, everything except for that quarterly chart, is showing bearish clues right now. So we have to kind of keep that in mind. We did get a pretty extreme sell-off here, so that might be all that we get. But we have to keep in mind that when you have all three ultra high time frames going into the daily showing clean bearish signals, that could mean there is a larger correction. And real quickly, if that correction continues here, again, remember that bulls seem to just jump in every time there's a pullback. But if this bearish signal that we got from the all-time high at 47.40 does follow through, again, daily, weekly, and monthly all agreeing, we could see correction all the way back into 45.30 here, all the way back to 44.72, which was kind of our line in the sand back mid-October. On that morning, we said if we stay below 72, we'd be bearish. If we could get through that, it would be a nice clue for the bulls. We got through it and pushed. We haven't come back to cleanly test 72, so that's still nice and open in the books. And even if we did sell off all the way to 72 or break it even further and come into 22 here and then bounce, we would still be in a bullish market. So that is a possibility. Remember, all those high time frames have the bearish signal. The 4-hour does as well. And then everything below the 4-hour becomes pretty ambivalent from a divergent perspective. We don't really have strong bearish or bullish signals from the highs or the lows. So it's kind of interesting. I don't think I've seen something like that yet, where we don't see much of anything on the 60 or the 30 or the 10 from either the high or the low from the day before. So kind of a unique situation here this morning. Essentially, what we're going to be doing is looking to see if the bears are going to stay strong this morning. So we do have much more of a bearish argument from the all-time high than a bullish argument from the lows. So we are going to kind of be more of a bearish bias this morning until they get above '07. So there might still be some bullish trades this morning, bringing us into '07. But overall, we're going to have a bearish bias until we can get through '07 quarter. That's going to be our first line in the sand. And then I want you guys to keep in mind that 46.6750 was 50% of the previous 4 hour. So staying above that would be a good thing for the bulls. Getting above '07 will give us a lot more confidence in a bullish case this morning. And outside of that, we're just going to have to kind of take it level by level here. We don't really have the strongest case outside of the fact that the bears from the all-time high are looking really, really strong from a signals perspective. So we'll see, if they continue to win out here this morning. And like I said, there might still be some bullish trades bringing us higher in here. But overall, if we can't get through '07, that is going to, put a little bit more weight on the bearish clues for this morning. So we'll leave it at that for our YouTube watchers out there. And we're going to jump down to the short time frames here and see if we can't get some trades out this morning in our members section. So for everyone else that's watching out there, have a great rest of your day. We're going to jump down and go into our members section. Take care.